Welcome to the midweek follow up. All right, so this week we were talking about faith. We're in this series, Enduring Faith, and so I kind of wanted to kind of group in some questions around faith. And so, the first one we talked about was, why is God not consistent with God's actions, responses, healings, savings, all those kind of things? Why is it not just universal? Like, if someone asks, they should be answered. If a kid, anytime a kid is ill or sick, they should be healed, period. We kind of hold these standards with God. And the challenge of it all kind of comes down to kind of control in some ways. We want to mandate or dictate what God does, right? Like, we want to try to control everything. Anything outside of our control, we don't like that. And so having a God that does God's will and not our will is a challenge for us, right? And so we want things to be under our control. And once they start slipping away from out of our control, we struggle with that. And it led us to this other question within this of why God is not consistent in this, into deciding who we serve. Because if we are going to follow God, it can't be the God that we control. It can't be the God that we kind of manipulate. It has to be outside of ourselves, and we have to be willing to serve God, who is a God that is going to do things that God sees as a priority, not what we see as a priority. And that's some tough stuff, right? Like that's some tough stuff when it comes to faith. And so we have to decide who we're going to serve. Are we going to serve ourselves? Are we going to serve our priorities, our space, our needs, our desires? Or are we going to serve God? And if our choice is to serve God, then at the same time, we also are choosing to serve others, help others out, put others as a priority, put God as a priority in our life. And what we find in that is that there's actually a lot of freedom. There's true freedom in the fact that we are making choices outside of ourselves. We can actually limit ourselves to the point of restricting the freedom we have in our life. Because, I mean, think about it. Think of how often you've looked at yourself and not thought that you were worth anything, that you weren't lacking, that all these negative kind of things. There's freedom in the pursuit of God. And we talked about that Joshua text of, Joshua comes down to finally this statement. He says, you have to make your own choice. And I'm saying that to you today. You have to make your own choice, right? You have to make your own choice of who you will serve. Will it be God, or will it be yourself? And Joshua talks about it. He says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And so may that be with you today. The second question that I got into on Sunday's sermon was, what is faith? Like when it comes down to it, like, is faith, like, it's this word that gets thrown around like something people don't have, like, you lack faith, believe in the Force. Like, you just had, May the 4th that happened, Star Wars Day, and May the 4th be with you. And so we talked about faith, but faith is finding assurances outside of yourself. To have faith, what faith is actually finding assurance in something beyond yourself. So faith is trusting in God, like, with your life, not just in word, but in deed. And so trusting others and God outside of yourselves, that means, sharing with people. That means communicating with people about what's going on in your life. That means connecting with people on a spiritual level. And faith is a thing we work on our entire lives, right? The third thing we talked about, third question, was what does a victorious faith look like? Like, if we're going for a win here, we want to get the W, then what does a victorious faith look like? And at the end of our scripture that we talked about this last Sunday, we talked about this. It talks about this cloud of witnesses, right? In chapter 12, it talks about in Hebrews, and for me, like, as a kid, I distinctly remember thinking about this verse all the time, and thinking about, like, I would lay in bed and envision don't know if I would receive a vision or like it would just be something my mind would think about. But I think about people from my past who have urged me on in faith, urged me on in life, that were just watching over me, I guess, as a kid. I thought about that. And every time I hear Cloud of Witnesses, I think about those people. And I think about those people that have passed. A friend of mine um, who was very instrumental in my faith as a college student, really poured into me and loved on me. Um, and after that, died this week. And it wasn't because of COVID-19; it was other health issues. But it maybe that cloud of witnesses is growing larger. It is kind of what I think about. But a victorious faith is a life that's lived with discipline, dedication, and durability. Disciplined enough that every day you're making faithful choices to follow and serve the Lord, no matter what that looks like. Whether that looks like in quarantine or that looks like in anything else. It's that active choice and the discipline to stay dedicated to that. The second one is the dedication that every single day. It's not a Sunday thing. It's not a Wednesday follow up thing. It's like every day, a dedication to God. And the last one is the durability, that no matter what happens, you're able to persevere, that you're able to get through it, that you're able to push on. And goes back to that question one, like if you're doing these, if you're, discipline, dedication, and durability, that means when things go awry, when things go bad, and you're like, why is God not answering? You are steadfast in your faith, believing that God is actually working out something greater than what we know. And I don't know what that is. I wish I had God's playbook and I could be like, and of course, someone just said the Bible in their mind. Um, but as for like what goes on in your life daily, I trust that God is working out things for the best. I trust that right now, by faith, that God is doing something new. That coming out of COVID-19 quarantines of, um, killer wasps or whatever, like, and terrible weather, that I believe God is going to institute and do something great coming out of this. And I desperately want to be on God's side of it. And so may your faith be victorious. May it be something that you continue to pursue regardless of circumstance, regardless of things that are happening in your life. Um, may you do it. And the last thing I asked of you in Sunday's sermon was to send me questions. What are the questions that have you hung up in faith? What are the things that you just go, God, I just don't know how this works? Yesterday, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who had a conversation with his kid about faith, about kind of spirituality. And he was kind of talking about death and what kind of happens when you died. And we were talking about things like that. And one of the things that it comes down to for me is sometimes is we get really distracted on like particulars, like what happens and how does it look like. And I'm like, I haven't talked to anybody who's been there and back, so I can't tell you with absolute certainty, but I know who's in charge and I know whom I will serve. And so as for me, I'm going to serve the Lord, and I want to do that recklessly, without with with full abandonment of anything, to not worry about the problems that I put on myself, but allow God to be the answer. And so today, may you push towards a victorious faith with discipline, dedication, and durability. Send me your questions if you have them. We talked about Jesus not being scared of questions. I'm not scared of questions either. I can't tell you if I'll have the right answers or all the answers without some work, but I don't mind having questions and talking through them. So today, I would invite you to journal, talk with some friends about the questions above. The scriptures are listed above from Joshua and Hebrews, as well as I'll leave our core scriptures up there, our anchor text for this series, which is from Hebrews 11. So check those out, read through those, journal, spend some time talking with friends, and I would just invite you to pray for our church as we continue to move forward. Things in our world look differently these days, and they're going to continue to look differently. and pray for your leadership team as they continue to kind of work and adapt along the way. Love you guys, miss you guys, and man, look forward to seeing you again.